The first word spoken to him,
اقرأ.
read. He could not read, not a single word, in his entire life. Who was speaking? He was 40 years old. He had a wife, a reputation. He was not a priest. He was not a scholar. He was not looking for what found him. That night, he came back different, not enlightened, not glorious, not peaceful. He came back terrified. People can invent power, they can invent stories, but panic like this is harder to fake. He said one thing to his wife, "I fear for my life." A man inventing a religion does not begin like this. His name was Muhammad ibn Abdullah, 40 years old, a merchant, a man people trusted. He had no title, no position, no religious training, and he could not read. Not because he was poor, not because he was hidden, because he had never learned. In Arabic, the word for this is ummi, the unlettered one. His enemies called him this. They meant it as an insult. They had no idea what that word would come to mean. For 3 years, he climbed this mountain, not once, not twice, hundreds of times, always alone, always at night, always to the same place. A cave barely large enough to sit in. No one knew why, not even those closest to him. He climbed that mountain for years. What was he looking for? We know what he found. We don't know what he expected. No one does. The mountain kept that secret for 3 years. Then, on one specific night, in one specific month, it stopped. He had been here before, hundreds of times. He knew this darkness. That night, something was different. He didn't see anything. He felt the air change. Then, Iqra, read, spoken into the darkness, to a man who had never, not once, read a single word. He returned in terror. That mountain still stands. The cave is still there, unchanged. The same darkness, the same walls, the same narrow entrance. 3 million people climbed that mountain last year. Not one of them came back the same, but none of them were there that night. 610 CE. One man, one cave, one night, and something waiting for him in the dark. His enemies wanted to destroy him. They called him a liar, a madman, a fraud. They attacked everything, his character, his motives, his family. But not this. They never called him literate, because they couldn't. It was true, and they knew it was true, because they were there. Montgomery Watt, not a Muslim, not a believer, a historian. He spent decades studying the sources. He concluded, this does not match the behavior of a man who invented something. A man who manufactures a religion does not run home trembling. He does not say, "I fear for my life." He does not need his wife to convince him he is not insane. Maxime Rodinson, not a Muslim either. Same sources, same conclusion. Not chosen, seized. His enemies confirmed his illiteracy. They meant it as an insult. They had no idea that the insult would become the proof. They called him a liar about everything, but not about this. Why? This profile is not new. It is not unique to one tradition. It is not unique to one century. Abraham Heschel, scholar of Jewish scripture. Not a Muslim, not studying Islam. He spent his life studying the Hebrew prophets. His conclusion, and he was careful, was that the prophetic encounter is never sought. It is not an experience the prophet looks for. It is an event that seizes him. Moses did not go looking for a burning bush. Isaiah said, "I am not worthy. Send someone else." The evidence suggests, though it does not prove, that Muhammad's terror was not an exception. It was the pattern. Every transmission in human history begins the same way. Not with joy, not with certainty, with a man who did not ask for what arrived. Her name was Khadija, 55 years old, a merchant, successful, independent, respected. She had chosen him, not the other way around. She was older than him, wealthier than him. She knew him better than anyone alive. That night, he came back shaking. His words made no sense. His body wouldn't stop trembling. He told her everything. A rational woman would have called a physician. A cautious woman would have waited, asked questions, needed time. Khadija did none of these things. She took the mantle. She covered him. She held him. And she believed him immediately. No hesitation, no doubt. The first person on earth to say yes was his wife. That night happened. The terror was real. The trembling was real. Khadija's belief was real. The cave is real. It still exists. You can climb to it tomorrow. What happened inside, no instrument has measured. No historian has settled. What happened inside that cave? 3 answers exist. Each one has been held by serious people. God spoke directly to one man in one night. Something else spoke, something that arrived before we had language for it, or a man descended so deep into what it means to be human that humanity remembered itself. None of these can be proven. None of them can be dismissed. That cave has been holding this question for 1,400 years. It is still holding it. He descended that mountain with one word he couldn't obey, one word he couldn't explain, one word that changed everything. Read, spoken to a man who had never read. That is not an accident. Every tradition that has studied this asks the same question. Not why Muhammad? Why that word? Why begin with an order that cannot be obeyed? What does it mean to command the impossible from the very first breath? The next episode goes there. The man who couldn't read and what he produced anyway. Something that 1.9 billion people have memorized, word for word, in a language most of them don't speak. That doesn't happen by accident either. One man, alone in a cave, shaking. He walked back into his life, and nothing was the same. Most people who watch this tonight will close the tab, move on, forget. But some won't. Some will lie awake tonight thinking about a cave in the middle of a desert, thinking about a man who couldn't speak when he came home. If that's you, you're not alone. This story has been doing that to people for 1,400 years. Something about it refuses to leave. It finds you in the quiet, when the screen goes dark, when there's nothing left to distract you. And something in you recognized that tonight. You felt it. Not everyone does. Tell us what you felt, not what you think, what you felt. Because some of you have been there, Not in a cave, but in that specific darkness, the one where something arrives and you don't have words for it yet. Have you ever felt chosen for something you never asked for? Something you carried for years, quietly, alone, a direction that made no sense to anyone around you, a certainty you couldn't explain, a voice, not a voice, something quieter than a voice, that wouldn't leave. You were not in a cave, but you were alone, and it was dark, and something found you anyway. That's what the comments are for tonight. Not analysis, not theology, just what arrived. And whether you were ready, he wasn't. Most of us aren't. He never asked for what arrived. Neither did you.